Hey guys, Zach here, and welcome back to another action figure review, and today we'll be taking a look at the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom Stiggymoloch. Now, the Stiggymoloch is a dinosaur that I think is an interesting choice to use for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, to say the least. I was kind of expecting to see the Pachycephalosaurus, but instead they used the Stiggymoloch, so I guess props to J.A. Bayona for, including a dinosaur that is a bit more obscure than the Pachycephalosaurus, so yeah. I guess if there's one thing I don't like about it, it's kind of used as a comic relief dinosaur, which, again, not really the biggest fan of, but it's whatever. The dinosaur is still in the Jurassic Park film, so that's cool. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get into this. So, starting off with the paint on this figure. The painting on this figure is pretty good. Not movie accurate, but still looks nice. So most of the body is a orange color with some patterning going on the top of the body here and on the side, which looks pretty good, as well as on the head here. And speaking of the head, the eyes are painted black. The beak, horns, and toenails are painted a gray color. Unfortunately, the fingernails aren't painted, but these are very small hands, so I can forgive that. And the dome skull right here is painted a very bright shade of gray, almost a whitish color. And the battle damage here is painted a glossy red, so it's basically similar to blue. Something weird, for some reason there's like a blue mark right here on the leg. It's not on this side, but it's still like on this side. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah. It's very minor, but it, I don't know how that got there, but whatever. And that about does it for the painting on the Stiggymoloch. Not movie accurate, but it's close enough to where it works, so the paint here gets a pass. Now take a look at the articulation, and the articulation here is similar to Blue's, but a bit more limited, so yeah. Anyway, the head can look up and down, can move 360, and we get a similar joint for the arms as well as the Blue, but they're a little more limited, so yeah, so you can get the same amount of movement. So yeah, the battle damage feature here, just push that and there you go. The legs are weird. They're kind of more, free than Blue's, but at the same time they're more limited. So I'll show you what I mean in a second, but they can move outwards that much, which isn't, as good as Blue. In fact, it looks like this leg moves more than this one. But, yeah. But the legs don't really, click into place. They still move, perfectly. Or, they still do, but when you move them, it doesn't feel like you're, forcing anything. It still moves kind of fluently, so, yeah. And that about does it for the articulation on this figure. So the articulation on this figure, a bit limited compared to Blue's, but it still looks pretty nice. So the articulation here gets a pass. Now I'll take a look at the sculpt, and the sculpting here is pretty good, and looks a lot like the Stiggymoloch from Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Just one minor nitpick I have, just like with the Battle Damage Blue, there is this weird peg right here, which I understand why it's there, so the battle damage feature can work, but it still kind of takes away from the sculpt. I feel like there could have been a much better way to handle this, but if I'm going to be honest, I'd prefer this than, the original dino damage for the old Kenner figures, because that's cool, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of cases where I'm sure a kid lost the skin piece, so kids were just stuck with this, dinosaur with this wound on the side of its body. But with Mattel, you can cover that up and it doesn't really come apart, so I actually like that a lot more than the original dino damage. The dino damage is still cool, but in terms of convenience, I'd say that this is better, so yeah. Other than that, the sculpting on this figure is still very nice, so the sculpt gets a pass, and the detailing on this figure is on the same level as Blue, but a little bit, not as good. So let's take a closer look. So the detailing for the head looks pretty good. All of these scales and all of these spikes look very nice. These spikes right here look okay. They don't look great, they're just okay, but it's whatever. And yeah, We have some creasing going down the neck right here, which doesn't look too great, and that kind of continues all the way through the body. The detailing for the arms don't really look that great either. They don't look awful, but they could look a lot better. I get that they're really small, but yeah, still something that, is worth pointing out. The legs are detailed not bad. The creases look nice, but the musculature isn't as much as Blue's detailing, but yeah, it's still there. But the detailing on the feet look not perfect, to say the least. And even the hullocks right here, it could have looked a lot better. It doesn't look bad, but still, it could have looked a lot better. And the detailing on the tail looks decent. So, the detailing on this figure, it's not as good as Blue's, but it's not terrible, so the detailing here, I guess it gets a pass, so yeah. Anyway, should you get this, I'd say yeah. There are other Stiggymoloch figures out there, but I feel like this is the best one to get if you want just one Stiggymoloch, because the articulation is good, and honestly, this figure just looks a lot better than any of the other Stiggymoloch figures. Something I will say, it's not as good as Blue, but again, I still feel like it works, rather nicely. So if you're buying this as a collector, if you're buying this for a kid, I feel like a kid would like this, and again, this figure does look nice sitting on a shelf, so yeah. So if you want this figure, it's a Walmart exclusive, and as of me recording this, it's still at Walmart, I think, and you do kind of have to pay about 10 or so bucks, maybe 14, which isn't bad for what you're paying for. This is still a very nice figure, so yeah. Anyway, if you want to know how big he is, here he is next to Dr. Billy Grant. And the scaling here, I feel like this Stiggymoloch is a bit too big. Maybe if he was more half the size of Billy Grant, I feel like that would work a lot better, but I understand why it's this size, because, all the articulation and the battle damage gimmick wouldn't really work as well, but yeah, the scaling here doesn't look awful, but yeah, still thought that was worth something that was just, worth pointing out. But anyway, that is it for today. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next video. Peace, Zek out.